Hi, hello, and welcome to BSN number 000001. This is actually now my second video. If you are familiar from my spy fiction class, this is obviously not about a book. And then the BSN actually means something different this time. It still has a network, it's just the BS network. So today, I'm going to be talking about this whole argument that I had with my roommate, who's actually one of my best friends. And okay, so we were talking about Overwatch characters, and I had made the bold claim that Sojourn is the easiest character in the entire game. And this just started the absolute worst argument ever, screaming at each other just over Discord and stuff like that, saying names. It's fine because we're best friends, so it doesn't actually matter. Neither of us really meant anything we were saying, but it led me to thinking what makes a character easy, because as I got off, I hopped off as I was just laying in bed just thinking, how could I have won that argument better, or had better articulated what I had meant? Because what I said and what I meant kind of were a little different. What I said, Sojourn is the easiest character in Overwatch 2. Talking about Overwatch 2 right now. What I really meant is that Sojourn is the easiest character to get value or to be good at, because I've been playing Overwatch since Overwatch 1 came out in 2016. I started playing in December 2016, so I've been playing it for about 6 years. I feel like I have a good general knowledge because I've played ranked for a while. I never gotten really high or anything. I'm a biased tank player. So yeah, there's you can see my implicit biases there. I'm a tank player. I have never been too high on the ranked ladder. I've gotten diamond in Overwatch 2, but right now I'm gold working through that stuff because school and whatnot. And what I've kind of come to the conclusion is that I'm qualified enough to talk about some video games, some video game characters. I'm playing video games for a while, FPSs especially. If we're gonna talk, and what I'm gonna talk about is basically the easiest way to be good, because at the tier I'm at right now is I'm just good at the game. I'm not great, I'm not better or anything, but I'm not bad at the game. I'm just good. And I'm saying in my tier of play, how easy is it to be good at a character and get value? And so I've kind of broken that down into two areas. So there's mechanical skill, and then there's game sense, ability, usage skill. A mechanical skill is how you see in almost any other FPS, is how many headshots are you hitting, what body shots, what's your miss to hit ratio, and kills to deaths. But Overwatch is very particular and special in that way, is that it has MOBA-esque qualities where you have abilities what used to be a flash is now a magnetic grenade. You have movement abilities and stuff that makes your character that you're playing unique and different, and is the reason why we all kind of love the game, because of all the interactions that happen between all the different abilities that these characters get. So I've broken it down into an extremely complex thing of skill, into mechanical skill and game sense / ability usage skill. At the top of the meta right now in season 3, this is gonna really date itself in about 2 months, but at the top of the meta of season 3 is Sojourn. She's without a doubt the best DPS, probably the best character in the game, just because of the skill ceiling that she has is so high, and the fact that they have they buffed her and have tried to nerf. They've nerfed her 3 times with both compensatory buffs. Breaking it down, mechanical skill, how many things you're hitting, stuff like that, and game sense skill is what is your map knowledge? Do you know how all the interactions work? Do you know what you're good against, what you're bad against? Do you know how to engage the enemy? Stuff like that. So his argument, when we were arguing, yelling at each other and stuff like that, he said the statement of do you think Winston is difficult? And what he was talking about, or what I assume, because I didn't actually ask him, but what I can infer from what he's talking about is the things that the weapon that he uses, the M1 primary, don't play Overwatch, is a Tesla cannon, and it kind of shoots out into this wide area, but it's close distance, so it's not this crazy. and it can hit multiple targets at once, but it is not mechanically difficult. And that was what he was trying to say. Basically, his whole argument was Sojourn can't be easier than Reaper, because Reaper is mechanically easier than Sojourn is, because Sojourn with a railgun shot is a very mechanically intensive ability or skill that you need to adapt and acquire to have in an FPS game like Overwatch. But the thing is, Monkey Winston isn't an easy character whatsoever. He's actually a quite difficult character, and I would say he's one of the more difficult tanks on the entire roster, because it is not the mechanical skill that is the required thing that you need to be good at Winston. It is the game sense, knowing when to push, and knowing who to push, knowing when to use your bubble, when to use your leap, and especially I would say that his ultimate is the hardest ultimate in the game to actually get value out of, because he turns into, I get angry, and he turns into a big monkey and he starts bashing around people. And one of the hardest skills in the game and tech that you can do is being able to juggle and being able to directly know how far you're leaping and stuff like that. So I decided, in the light of this argument and how I'm sort of rating how easy it is to get value out of characters, just decided to make a tier list from easiest to hardest of characters that how easy it is to be good at them. So I'm gonna go in order, alphabetically from the Play Overwatch website of each character. So first off, Ana. Ana is what I would say is rated more highly on the mechanical side, and then she is on the game sense and ability side, because her abilities aren't hard to hit. Well, some of them are. Her Ana nade isn't hard to hit because it's a huge AoE, and all it really takes is getting around some shields and some cover. But other than that, it's not it's not a difficult ability to hit. Her Q isn't hard to hit because it immediately locks onto somebody. The only thing that's really hard to hit about her abilities is her sleep dart. But if you're good at mechanically with Ana, with her left click and her scope shot, because she's like a pseudo sniper, then the L shift, sleep isn't too hard to hit, and especially when you're getting pushed or getting dove on by a monkey or something. The big hitboxes and too entirely hard to hit, but on tracers and stuff, that's where the mechanical challenge comes. So I've rated Ana on the more difficult tier, which is the second to lowest, because to get value out of Ana, you actually have to be good mechanically in the game to get that value. But everything else, she's pretty lower on the abilities tier. Ashe. So unlike the other snipers that I've kind of rated similarly, she gets into half and half, to where mechanically, her scoped in and her side shot are pretty difficult to hit, because it's like Ana, where it takes a level of mechanical skill in the game to actually get value out of it. But her grenade, her bob, and her coach gun are extremely easy abilities to use. So to get value out of her, you need to be able to use more than just her abilities, because they don't do that much damage. But she's focused more on the mechanical side along with Ana. The next character is Baptiste, and I put him again at half and half, to where his L shift isn't hard to hit, his right clicks aren't hard to hit, his ability isn't hard to use, or entirely at all. Maybe just knowing when to use it is a bit of a challenge. His immortality field isn't really that hard to use, because again, it's another projectile. But again, he has the passive of jumping and stuff like that, so that might be hard to use, as in knowing where to position yourself. And he also takes a level of mechanical skill and rhythm skill to know the way to best optimize his character. So for healing wise, he's very easy to use. So that's where it comes to getting simple value. But to fully get really good at Baptiste, and even at the level I'm at, you need to be able to use the tempo of hitting left clicks and then right clicks, then the tempo of bum bum bum, and you kind of get into this flow of the fight. So I put him at half and half. The next character is Bastion, and Bastion, even after his rework, is an incredibly simple character, as he kind of is just a turret, a gigantic machine gun turret on top of a moving vehicle this time. His mechanical skill isn't that high, and his ability skill isn't that high, because his grenade can bounce off walls, and I think it sticks onto people when it actually hits people. So that's not hard to use. His ult's not hard to use, because it's just Doomfist ult, but you can do it 3 times, which isn't a difficult ability. And his sentry mode isn't that hard to use. The only mechanical thing that's kind of difficult is his out of sentry mode left click, and even then they made it so that it's so long between each shot that you can really set up your cursor, and it's not like mechanically very demanding. So I put him at the simple tier. The next character is Brigitte. I do want to make a quick mention before I get into more of these characters about like one of the parts of the argument that we were talking about is characters like level of good versus bad, like if they're good in the meta or not. And what the point I was trying to make is meta characters are inherently easier to play because they're meta for a reason, either through their versatility like Sojourn, or their like damage output, like when Genji can like one-shot squishies and stuff like that with a combo. The fact that they are good makes them easier because it's easier to get value out of a good character versus a bad character, like Reaper. I'll get into that more later. Anyways, Brigitte. I put her at half and half because her left click isn't hard to hit, and neither is her bash. But knowing when to like push in and having like good distance, and the fact that she's not like really good in the meta right now also lends to the fact that you have to be, to get value out of her, you have to have like some inherent like knowledge of like your matchups and what you're actually good against. Yeah, so she's about half and half. Where mechanically she's not very demanding, but the game sense wise she's pretty demanding, and I would say that like because of the fact that she's bad. The next is Cassidy. Cassidy is fully, not fully, but he's more mechanically demanding than he is ability usage demanding, because high noon isn't hard to hit, it's just hard to know when to use. His magnetic grenade is, like I said, magnetic, so it's not hard to use at all. And his roll is like, you know, it's got an invincibility frame, so it's got some nuance there, but he is just kind of a guy with a revolver, which is, you know, he's Cassidy. It's high noon somewhere. So I've put him at difficult because it's hard to get value out of Cassidy if you aren't mechanically good at the game. He has his right click, but he doesn't have a stun anymore, so it's not like, it doesn't make him, you know, like that easy. So the fact that he isn't versatile in a lot of things, I mean, they increased his range recently, but it's due to like the facts of like all the things building up that makes him difficult to get value out of. Diva is the next character who I have put at, she's half and half, and I put her half and half because her abilities aren't hard to use. She's mechanically not too demanding, but like getting use out of her and using her to be like very optimized and stuff is pretty difficult, because also she's not very good in the meta right now. So the tactic of being like the off tank in Overwatch 1 doesn't really work anymore, because you have to do so much as the tank in Overwatch 2 because you don't have another tank to help you. So you can't only just like defend and getting your DPS or your supports getting dove on. You have to be aggressive and be able to output damage and support the rest of your team. The next character, Doomfist. So Doomfist, near and dear to my heart, so glad he's now in the tank category, because I never used to play him. Well, no, I have played him a lot, but I didn't used to play him in comp because, you know, DPS. I wasn't DPS man or anything like that. Doomfist, I would say, is one of the hardest characters in the game to actually get value out of, because he is so mechanically demanding. I mean, even though they have completely simplified his entire kit, you see people like Zebra, and it's like the fact that he's such a one-trick just like lends to his level of skill in the game and his map knowledge, because like other people in the hardest category, not only is he mechanically demanding, you have to have an insane knowledge of the maps that you play on, because the maps that you play on dictate how you play and how you push. So Doomfist is one of the hardest characters in the game for that. I know he's pretty good right now. He's pretty good in the meta, but to actually like, you need to not only be able to use your abilities effectively, you have to use his E effectively, which is really hard, and you have to be able to hit like the rocket punch, make sure it's charged up, be able to hit like your left clicks and stuff like that. So if you're not, you know, mechanically, you know, well versed in Doomfist's kit, then you aren't going to get any value out of him. The next character is Echo, and I've put her at half and half. I used to have her difficult, but I put her in half and half because, like Pharah, she's another flying character. But some of her abilities aren't too hard to hit. Her right click sticky bombs aren't hard to hit, and her E, that's like a beam, takes some tracking, but you know, when you use it effectively when someone's less than 50% HP, then they just die in 2 seconds anyways. The hardest thing kind of about her kit is like her left click and being able to use it in the air. You have to have like a similar Pharah like mechanical capability of being able to predict where someone is going to go and leading your shots. And then also on top of that, her ult is the worst ult in the game, because not because it's bad, but because it's the most annoying one, where she gets her ult, the ults of the character that she picks quickly. So like it takes some skill where you have to know another character, but if you just pick Zarya, like come on, like it is not like that hard. The next character is Genji. I put him as like the hardest DPS to actually get value out of, because not only does he, like Doomfist, take an insane amount of mechanical skill, he also takes an insane amount of game knowledge skill, because it's not exactly easy to hit the one shots on squishies. And the fact that they nerfed him recently and haven't buffed him since they nerfed him, it makes it harder to get value out of him. All of his damage got nerfed, and he doesn't even have the DPS passive anymore to like really boost him with the speed and reload. So it makes it like a lot harder to get value out of a character like Genji, even if you're mechanically good at him. Like you see Genji one tricks, but you never really see him at top 500. But if he was better, if they had buffed his damage and stuff, he'd be easier, because it's easier to hit those one shots on squishies, but he can't anymore. So it makes him like one of the hardest ones in the game. Hanzo, like other snipers, I put him in difficult. Storm arrows is kind of hard to hit, and Sonic arrow is like kind of useful, but like overall, besides like his ult being pretty bad, he's just mechanically demanding because he uses bow and arrow, which sometimes can just give you random headshots, but other times you're like, I can't get a headshot at all. One of the newest characters on the tank roster, Junker Queen, I have rated her at half and half, to where she's mechanically slightly demanding. I mean, her shotgun, it's really fun. I mean, she's all around a really fun character to use, but to be able to effectively time like her right clicks into her like E's, they did buff her recently, but she still has there's some mechanical demand on the player to actually be able to utilize her bleed damage and her own self-healing, as well as her shout effectively, because you can very much debate yourself into using your shout, and then you have like a 15-second cooldown and you aren't able to use it, and then your team just gets rolled over. Her ult though, not hard to use. Junkrat, I put him at half and half, and people, whoa, hold up. I put Junkrat at half and half. I understand this might be a hot pick, but Junkrat, if he wasn't buffed by the devs an insane amount, is an extremely hard character to really get value out of, in the sense that like because of his projectiles, if there isn't a tank or shield to bust, and there's a lot more smaller character models, then he kind of just falls by the wayside and gets trampled over by any other almost simple to use DPS or any other mechanically demanding ones. So yes, he's pretty good right now in the meta, but that doesn't mean that the fact of like hitting a tracer with one of his left clicks isn't almost impossible. And they also nerfed his mine damage, so you can't even just do a mine left click anymore. You have to do like 2 mines. So I put it half and half, to where you need to have some mechanical skill, but his abilities aren't really too hard to hit. Kiriko. Okay, Kiriko, I put it half and half because her kunai are undoubtedly hard to hit, but there's sometimes we get to do the classic on the channel of just throwing your kunai down and you just get random headshots because people don't see them; they're impossible to see. But her ult isn't hard to use, and it usually doesn't even matter when you use it because it's so goated. Her Afuda are hard to hit, and her cleanse isn't hard to hit. So the kunai part of her is pretty difficult, but it also has this thing. But then the rest of her abilities are really easy to use. Lucio, I put him at half and half because to get real value out of Lucio, yeah, you can just put it on healing beat every single time for the whole match, but you aren't speeding in your team or anything like that. So you have to be able to. His ability usage is an extremely high mechanic that you need to be able to know, and you also need to be able to get environmental kills and use your boop effectively to not just waste that cooldown that he has. His ult isn't hard to hit, but it's a defensive ult, so you really got to build up to it, and you really got to use it in very opportune moments. Which, as somebody, I don't really play Lucio that much, but I know that I can definitely debate my team into thinking that they're okay, and then you just get hit by a grab drag. The next character is Mei, who I put as simple. Her left click isn't hard to hit. I mean, they get rid of the freeze except for outside of the ult, except for inside the ult. Sorry. But her right click's kind of hard to hit. It takes some mechanical skill, takes some leading, because of the charge up time of it. Block and her wall are not hard abilities to use, and her ult isn't hard to use. It's also easy to know when to use it. So I just put her at simple. The next character I have is Mercy, who's at simple, where yeah, you can do some techs with her that make her hard to use, but honestly, especially in Overwatch 1, if you kind of just pocket your DPS or you pocket your tank, yeah, she's not hard. She just got her beam. She doesn't really need to use her thing, and her ult doesn't really have a risk reward. It's just kind of pop it in a defensive or even an offensive position. So she's just kind of easy. Moira, I have her at the other easiest character in the game to get value out of because her kit is the easiest in the game. You got the orb, which you don't even really have to aim. Her left click, the only thing you have to know is to not spam it all at once. And her right click kind of auto tracks like ult Symmetra. Her ult, it goes through shields, it goes through your teammates and enemies, damage and heals at the same time. It's kind of she's kind of really easy. Nothing else to say about that. Reese I put in simple because she takes some mechanical skill with her right click and her left click shooting, but the rest of her, she's not we're not doing crazy stuff out here with Arisa, and her ult is only difficult to use to know when to use it and to know when to actually fully execute it. So it's just she's kind of easy. She's a simple, easy character in her kit. Pharah I put it difficult because not only is she usually not bad, she's pretty map dependent. So if you're on a bad map for Pharah, you just kind of get dumpstered on. You can get no value out of her. You have to know she's mechanically demanding with her actually getting hits. You're not Yazan. You're not that guy, essentially, is what I'm trying to say. Unless you are that guy, but usually you're not that guy with Pharah. And she's just really a map dependent pick. So it just makes her really difficult to actually get value out of. The next character is Ramatcha. I think he's difficult to get value out of because you really, again, like some of these other characters, it takes some mechanical skill in his left click, even though you kind of just it's got 100 shots, so it's kind of pretty easy that way. But you can debate yourself and not use your L shift or your ult effectively at all, and half the time, but I mean his ult is kind of a free win, but there's sometimes where DPS gets around your back as you're blocking in front of the other Ramatcha, and then he just hits you with a ding 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 ding, and then you're dead. So yeah, he's slow. You need to be very methodical with how you're using him. Reaper. Okay, we all know I think Sojourn's easier than Reaper, but Reaper's still in the simple tier. His abilities aren't hard to use, they just are kind of bad in comparison to other movement abilities. Yeah, he has intangibility, which, I mean, his L shift, they're not hard abilities to use, they're just hard to get value out of effectively, because you can only really use his abilities. One of them you can only use defensively, and then the other one, I mean, you never really use it. I mean, use it to get out of spawn faster is essentially the reason why you use this teleport, and his ult isn't hard to use. Ryan I put half and half because the time mechanically, besides his fire strike, it's not that hard. We're not kidding ourselves here. But game sense wise, Reinhardt is so kind of complex and nuanced to know. Shield health when you're pushing, how to do a Ryan v Ryan. It's a lot when you're trying to pick up Reinhardt. Roadhog. Now Roadhog recently got nerfed, but I still put him at half and half because most mechanically demanding part, and that used to be his whole thing is, the hook insta shot. Now it's a hook and you can barely insta shot anything. So to get actual value out of Roadhog, as he is now kind of relegated to this side character that does, every 6 seconds does CC, harder to get value out of him essentially, especially with his ult. His ult's pretty good now that you can channel it and use it how you want to. But overall, he is just kind of hard to get value out of, but a lot of his abilities are easy to use. The next character, one of my favorites, Sigma. What is that melody? I put him as simple. Essentially, it's really easy to get value out of him because he does everything a tank needs to do in Overwatch right now. He has a block, he has a kinetic grasp that can eat ults and stuff like that, and he also has his CC, and his ult is pretty crazy as it drops everybody to half. So he just can do everything that you need him to do. He does insane damage with his left clicks, and they also do a little explosive damage, so you don't even really need to hit 100% of them all the time. He's just simple. I mean, his kit is kind of used to be complex in the terms of Overwatch 1, but now just with the lack of another tank, it becomes a lot easier and less complex than what it used to be. Sojourn. I don't think I need to go into this. Sojourn's the best. Her movement ability is insane. Her E is free damage, and her ult just makes it easier to use her right click. She's just the easiest character in the game to get value out of, and you're like, but what if I can't hit the right click headshots? What if I can't get the right click headshots? Bro, you can literally charge up the right click off of anything. Shields, turrets, it doesn't matter what you're shooting at. You get energy off of it. All you need is 100, and you're doing 130 body shot. Doesn't matter how far away from anything. So she's not difficult in that sense. She's mechanically demanding in one part of her kit, and her ult makes it easier to do that. So, or makes it easier to get value out of just shooting. So she's just insanely easy. Yes, is her ceiling really high? Yes, her ceiling's really high because she has the Widowmaker right click. I mean, the bottom of the barrel, it's not hard to get value out of her. You can get 20,000 damage easy just using your left click because you just Soldier essentially at that point. Anyways, Soldier 76. I put him as simple. I mean, his kit isn't hard to hit. I mean, the Helix Rockets is kind of hard to judge where to go, but I mean, his ult's auto aim, and they made it easier to use his gun, so he's just simple. Sombra, I made it difficult. I put her difficult to get value out of Sombra because she's kind of bad. She's not good. You need to. I mean, yeah, you can go invisibility for the whole time, but you need to know when to hack because now it only is like a 1 second duration. You have to be very coordinated with your team. You have to know where health packs are. You got to put your translocator in a good spot where you're close enough to battle to translocate, but also you don't get found out. She's a difficult character to get value out of. Next character I have up is Symmetra. She's in the simple tier because, I mean, she's kind of simple. There's nothing difficult about her kit, really, except for like tracking, which is another mechanically demanding thing. Torbjorn is also another character who's not bad. He's just simple. I mean, he's got his turret. I mean, his splooge ability, you know, his ult isn't hard to hit because you just kind of throw it all over the point. And then, like, he has a shotgun, you know, not really that hard to use. Tracer, I have her difficult. You know, managing your blinks, your recalls, not getting hit, flanking around effectively. These are all and her actual pistols aren't, you know, it's not like you're hitting one clips all the time. So you have to be mechanically, you know, gifted in that sort to actually get those one clips and to just get out immediately. Widowmaker, she's a sniper. She's just difficult because she does everything that Sojourn does worse. Her M1 is, you know, you never really use it. Her M2 is, you know, with a mercy pocket and stuff like that, it becomes, you know, a lot better. I mean, she can one-shot headshot, but, you know, it takes a lot of mechanical skill. So she's difficult to get value out of if you're bad at, you know, her mechanics. She also, if you're not good at, like, escaping getting dove on, you die all the time. We have the last four characters here. Winston. Like I said, I think Winston is one of the most difficult tanks in the tank roster, and so I have him at difficult part because of what I said previously of his ult being the hardest in the game. Like, that's, besides Dragon Blade, that's like one of the hardest ults to use and get effective in the game. I mean, his bubble it doesn't have that much health anymore, so it's really easy to accidentally use it and then not have it 12 seconds. I mean, his leap there's like a skill to it that you can have, but using it effectively is not easy. And getting like massive damage outputs from Winston is just an all-around hard task. Wrecking Ball, I have him as the third hardest character in the game to get value out of. Even though he got buffed, he's not crazy. Even when he's good, he's not easy because just mechanically he is just so difficult. That it's like, I mean, what else can I say? If you haven't played the game, Wrecking Ball is this guy who swings around. He has like these crazy techs that you can do, like these crazy spots that you can do and get to. And I mean, I don't know if you play the game, you know Wrecking Ball is incredibly difficult to use, except for his ult. His ult got way better, so it's way easier to use. But anyways, Zarya, I have her at simple. You know, managing energy is kind of difficult. It used to be a lot harder, but now she has 2 bubbles, so her survivability is up. So because of her 2 bubbles that she put on herself, But her, her main way of shooting isn't difficult. I mean, her right clicks are crazy because it just shoots out this whole thing. So she's just simple. She's just a simple tank. You can be very good at her with your tracking, mechanics and stuff like that. But her ult, supremely easy, one of the easiest in the game. So then we come to our last character, Zenyatta, who I have at difficult tier. Because, I mean, yes, his E isn't hard to hit because it auto tracks and stuff like that, and his ult isn't hard to use, but to get actual real value out of it, I mean, Discord isn't hard to use anymore, but it used to be. Who are you putting it on instead of the tank? The Discord. But to actually, utilize his damage output effectively is, it takes some skill because his shots aren't easy to hit. He's more mechanically demanding than he is game sense wise demanding because his transcendence, even though it's not that good of an ult anymore, it still does take some timing and stuff like that. So that is my tier list of how easy it is to get value out of particular heroes.